Ooh, E, ooh. We're live.
Oh, we're live.
Yeah, I
I'm
have
kidding. I knew.
I have some quotes here from Guy Debord. You know, I said there was a great book called Society of the Spectacle, but it's not
Yeah.
easy to read. Yeah, I got a couple of quotes that I thought might be relevant, and then one from Baudrillard as well. I'm just going to put this up on screen whilst we talk.
Ooh,
How
you
have
got
you?
it prepared.
Yeah, man. I'm a little
Nice.
SWAT. I'm a little SWAT today. How have you been?
I've been good, man. I've been doing those live streams around Prague. It's a collective date with collective girlfriend, and it's so much fun. My
That's good.
God.
That's good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. No, I think a lot more of you just walking around and chatting. I think it's a good thing. It's a
Oh, it's a
beautiful thing.
blast. I live streamed my whole box braids getting done today at the African braid shop, and I'm like, God, it was such a good time, man.
I liked it. I liked it.
Yeah.
It's
All
lovely.
right. So, in our society now, we prefer to see ourselves living than living. Wow.
It's a good one, right? It's a good one.
Nice, man.
Because I don't know. I don't know what I've said publicly to you. I know that we've discussed this individually, but you remember I was saying to you about there's two separate egos that people are developing now. One is the online self-image,
Mhm.
and one is the personal self-image.
That's right.
And I think I described to you an experiment that me and my cousin came up with, which was what would happen if you said to people who are digital natives, look, we can send you on a holiday. It's a £5,000 holiday, luxury, beautiful holiday. And you get to go there and live that, but you can never tell anyone. Nobody knows. That's option one. Option two is you don't go, but you get all the photos done by professional Photoshop experts that make it look like you went that you can share on social media. Which would you rather do? And the hypothesis was that with digital natives, not that they would necessarily choose option two, but that they would pause. They would pause
I
before
paused.
saying, you paused.
I paused.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so you're 28, right?
Right.
So imagine somebody
Oh,
age
27.
18,
Yeah.
27. So right in the Saturn return.
Yeah.
So as you're as you're like 18, 19 or 17-year-old, imagine that. Everything is
Right.
about image.
Right.
The fact that you pause now as we go down in age, I would hypothesize people would pause more and more until you get to an age where people be like, I don't want to take a holiday. I don't want the holiday that nobody knows about. I don't want to live the experience if I can't signal to the world that I'm living the experience. I'd rather not live it.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure, man. Can you zoom in on us? I need to see your beautiful sunglassed face.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me see how
So,
to do that.
yeah, the reason why I personally wouldn't do it, I'm sure a lot of people, is just because it's more dishonest. However, the reason why I paused is because that second option of having everything photoshopped and made it look like you were there is
Yeah.
that is a more, let's just say, viable business investment. A more viable investment to have some sort of return on it in terms of like actual material reception, but like obviously the first one's more intrinsic. You get something deeper out of that.
Well, this is interesting because I was before this. I tried cramming Guy Debord board and Baudrillard. I'm not going to
Yeah,
keep trying. I'm going to fuck those names up.
yeah.
I'm just going to say it in Scouse. Guy Debord and Baudrillard.
Hmm.
Um, and they kind of predicted this. So what you're talking about is for you, it's literally an economic thing. So if you can show that you went on that super exclusive holiday, you'll get more likes, more follows, and that converts to money. But this is what Baudrillard was saying: is this is the way as technology improves, capitalism has to end up going there, so that the actual intrinsic value and
Hmm.
what he called it the sign value. So there's an intrinsic value and there's a sign value, the symbolic representation value that offers you status. They split and they start to get wider and wider and wider apart. And so he predicted this. This is how you actually, I mean, you're a YouTube influencer, that you're a social media influencer for
Right.
real. Like that's what you're doing. And that job can only exist in a state where spectacle can be commodified, right?
Of course. Yeah, definitely, 100%, man. I actually made a whole podcast yesterday, and the first sentence that you said is exactly what we're on the same page with this. It's the splitting and fragmentation of the persona, online persona, and real personality, in
Yeah.
terms of like the intrinsic value. That we're at a state where the benefits of intrinsic value doesn't even seem to have an actual tangibility to it, to the point where why even bother
Yeah.
with it? You know,
Yeah.
there's like actually no tangible reason in this current state of the culture to have an intrinsic valuable experience.
Do you think that's why people take pictures of food all the time? Because to just eat it seems so pointless, but at least if you took a picture of it, it adds value?
Maybe okay. So I'm thinking, the more that we're talking about this, what if, because in most cultures around the world for the last thousands of centuries, hundreds of centuries, we did those things collectively already. We shared the food together. We did the vacations together. We were together in communities, and we're nomads, and we were flipping. We were making art together. We were singing around in a circle around the campfire. But because it doesn't happen anymore, we have to externalize that. And it seems like the internet is an externalization of that. But because it doesn't translate immediately, you have to exaggerate it to the point of spectacle.
Right. Right. So you are not forced, but kind of you feel compelled to pump it up a little bit.
Yeah, because it's like, a great example of this is like, when you go to watch a play and all the actors have a ton of makeup. When you see them up close, when you talk to the actor, it's like, yo, you got like a mask on your face, you know? But really, it's because like when you sit on the balcony, see the exaggeration within their eyes and all of this stuff. And that's the same as the internet. In order for you to have captivating speech, makeup, whatever else, it has to be exaggerated a little bit just because of the distance.
Okay. So what you're talking about, I was going to leave to the end, but you brought it up right now. So I'm going to go there now. This is Baudrillard. And he had a concept that he coined called the HyperReal. I took some screenshots of this.
So I might have looked a little bit at this before. Like years ago.
We've definitely talked around this where so the HyperReal in postmodernism is an inability of consciousness to distinguish reality from a simulation of reality, especially in technologically advanced postmodern societies. Goes a little bit further. It's hyperreality, Baudrillard, as the generation by models of a real without origin or reality. So it's a little bit further removed. So you say, in order to show up as the person I'm trying to show up as, I kind of have to be a caricature of that. If I'm not, people will not know how to take me. So yes. I have to be a caricature of whatever. I don't know. Like I'll be a caricature of an aging fat boy. Fat boy. How rude. Frat boy.
Yo, but and a great example of this type of thing. Do you know Andy Warhol?
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought, like personally, if you look at what he did in the context of the time period that he did, it's actually quite genius, because what he did was mirror back the capitalistic mass manufacturing and exploitation of this very superficial, colorful image that was replicated over and over and over again. But he did that as well as utilizing his image and this exaggerated personality to get that message across. And this was before the internet. So in a way, he was ahead of his time in the way that he would almost embody this exaggerated caricature, like you're saying, in order to be seen in the art world. If you don't do that nowadays on Instagram, on YouTube, or whatever else, good fucking luck, man. You won't survive.
Yeah, there's a couple of people reached out to me recently asking about starting up YouTube channels, and I'm like, you can do it, but you really have to have your shit together, and you really have to be very courageous now, very, very courageous, because it's hard to get seen, it's hard to get heard, and you have to signal who you are loud and clear. And I've always been ambiguous, which is why people get all stressy and pissed off with me, because they're like, well, what are you? Like, what are you saying? And I'm like, I'm asking you to think, fuckface. I'm actually asking you to think. And the modality of social media, modality of the internet is not asking people to think. It's an anti-thought environment. It's actually, I claim it's an anti-intellectual environment, and it trains people to be anti-intellectual to the point where if you ask people to think, they respond with violence, they respond with real rage. So it's like an angry monkey going, no, just give me the thing.
I think I might have brought this up really, really briefly, but in the very medium of internet communication, you have to solidify. It's not asking questions. In order to make a post, you have to simplify, solidify into a niche, into like a tangible thing, a 1080 by 1080 square on Instagram. Then you have to like, make it a certain time limit, but also you have to write the tags. Right. So inherently, you have to develop the language to solidify a concept, which is why everything in the world is categorization. That's why there's so many fucking labels. Is this ism, this ism, this is ism, all these things, because in order to search that topic in the internet world, you have to come up with a term for it. Otherwise, good luck.
There's a quote that I was going through, and I didn't choose the quote, but it directly it directly references what you just said, which is that you end up, here we go. He will essentially follow the language of the spectacle, for it is the only one he is familiar with. So you end up only being able to talk in terms of the language of the spectacle. So it actually, this is the, both Baudrillard and Guy Debord go down this road. They say, okay, you have intrinsic value, sign value, they split, and they get, with time, they get further and further apart. But the sign value grows in power and the intrinsic value shrinks in power. So you actually, and then we start talking it into reality. So you need the language of hyperlinks, hashtags.
Right.
We've had to discuss like YouTube titles. We've had to, I mean, you sat with me as I paid somebody to help us figure out what the best YouTube titles are. And it's not about the actual quality content of the video. My God, that is it secondary or is it tertiary? If it's tertiary, nobody's going to see the fucking thing. So how do you get seen? It's like you said, you have to be the caricature that the Matrix wants.
Yes.
Or you don't get seen. So we're actually being trained. This is back to the same thing, trained by the Matrix.
Yeah, no, and I am deep in the Matrix in this way. I'm plugged in. That's why I got these cyber locks. You know what I mean? I'm like those two white twins in the Matrix right now. And to further prove what you're saying here, I think both of our issues for a while, I mean, you ended up landing on narcissism being your key title, right? Mine for the last 2 years, I could not get myself to condense what the fuck I wanted to talk about because I didn't want to condense it. I didn't want to categorize it. And that worked completely against me. As of 3 months ago, I was like, you know what? All right, I'll play this simulacra's game. Let's play the Matrix's game. I'll use a celebrity and a title on that. And then that will be my gateway to speak about ambiguity. Right. And it worked. I had to speak the spectacle's language in order to be heard.
Okay. So in order to come back to nuance and shades of gray, you have to be a fucking caricature first to even get heard.
Yeah. Well, I always joke around being an anime cartoon character, but it literally is the Matrix. You plug into an avatar version of yourself.
Yes.
You plug into the avatar version of yourself. You still maintain your values and stuff, but you just manifest in this like different format. You know, you might speak a little differently. The gravity is a little different, you know, or maybe I could like break the Matrix and do that little dodge bullet thing. But like, you kind of have to do that if you are going to be fully within social media.
So we have one toe in the Matrix. It's not fully immersive yet, but it rules so much of our life. It governs so much of our lives. Coming back to what we were saying before about choosing the simulation over the real thing, choosing the photos of the holiday over the actual holiday. There's a tragedy there, man. There's a real tragedy there because there's multiple topics that's going to affect. Let's talk about love. How the fuck are you going to love? How are you going to be in a loving relationship when all you want is simulation and not reality, and you don't see the value? Like if you're just chilling with your bae watching Netflix, you're not actually putting anything out on social media at that point. It's actually kind of a waste of time to just take a walk in nature with each other, just chill out with each other or do nothing.
Yeah, and I think that was already on the incline, upcline, whatever you call it. Ever since the manifestation of rom-coms, I think that was the first prototype when it came to exaggerated love and like
Right.
maybe some romance novels, stuff like. I think we've always kind of done that, but now to a point where it's like there's couples YouTube channels and everybody's posting these like heavily photoshopped arranged couples. You ever seen those pictures? They were everywhere like a few years ago, where the girl is in some dress and she's like walking
Oh,
through the day, and
some fucking nitwit made me take a picture for her like that.
yeah, come
Yeah,
on, like come
yeah,
with me.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
there's like
yeah.
a giant turd, like you're walking to a golden bird,
Come with me, babe, to the giant turd.
Yeah, and it seems like, I mean, talking with a lot of like younger people and just browsing, dipping in the world and seeing like, like Tumblr posts of like they'll even do a simulated version of Netflix and chill, which would be like an exaggerated, polished image of sitting at home doing nothing with good lighting and
Yeah.
arranged messiness.
Yes.
Like how
So
true.
that's crazy because as an older person, I'm going to ask an old person's question, which is who is it for? Who's consume like when you do that rather than just watching TV? What who's it for?
It's for those who don't have it, you
Okay.
know?
Okay.
Like,
So
yeah, it's this weird relationship between, you know, the influencer, which simulates it and gives it to people who necessarily wouldn't have a significant other or whatever.
more horror, more horror. So it's only going to be consumed by lonely people who don't have that, because if
Yep.
they had it, they would just be doing it. More horror. So now it's all fueled by jealousy. It's only
Mhm.
fueled by lack, jealousy, probably envy as well,
Yep.
and a desire to climb that social hierarchy and to just sit there and go, I wish I had this and I don't. My life sucks. And then we sit around going, why is there an explosion in mental health issues? Why is everybody really sad and anxious? I'm like, well, could be a few reasons for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like again, on the on the format of speaking the same language in order to get to a bigger thing. Like I'm trying to meet in the middle with all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still taking like model-y photos, facetune a little bit here and there, exaggerate some things of mine. I mean, the live streams I'm doing around Prague is kind of meeting in the middle, but at the same time, I'm trying to add another element that makes it a little more intrinsic. So these live streams around Prague, it's not just me ignoring the whole chat and just being like, look what I have and not you.
Right.
I'm trying to make it so it's like shareable, like a legitimate shareable experience here, and it seems to be working very well.
Okay.
Otherwise, you see a lot of like other travel vloggers or Instagram influencers. I'm not saying I'm completely the opposite or different, but in the way that they'll present these things, it's almost as if like, look at what I have,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. It's
and
a hostile expression in a certain sense. It's
in a
aggressive.
weird way, because
Yeah.
I don't see these people really communicating with the viewers. I don't see a connection there. They're just like, you know.
Yeah, yeah, they're battering people with what they have. Could you explain to people what facetune is? Some people probably won't know what it is.
Long story short, it's Photoshop. It edits your face, and we've gotten to a point where there are apps that do it so incredibly well that
Mm,
it can do it in real time on a video, to a
yeah.
point where you can even adjust the shape of your face. So I can push my cheeks up in real time and like adjust things to its minute detail, and it can be very convincing if you know how to do it right.
So one of the topics that we were talking about discussing would be body dysmorphia, which is this is it. This is like the body dysmorphia entrainment app. Because with body dysmorphia, what you have is an image that you're trying to attain, and then external reality through the mirror. You're
Mhm.
extremely emotionally dysregulated, usually through trauma. There's a gap, and this
Mm,
creates enormous stress,
mm,
anxiety, depression, even self-loathing and rage, which then leads to self-destructive behaviors. There's no way that it can't lead to that end result, because you're basically the whole time that you're winning at that game of making yourself look prettier, the whole time your unconscious knows very well what you're saying is, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly. I'm not acceptable, I'm not acceptable, I'm not acceptable.
Yeah, the video that I released or I made yesterday about this very subject, I'm releasing tomorrow. One thing I'm saying is the face-tuned, smoothed out bowling ball version of your face, you start convincing yourself that that is your actual face.
Right.
So when those filters aren't there, your mind is now convinced that that's not your real face. So now your mind is trying to convince itself that the bowling ball version of you is your actual face.
Right. And this ties in actually with a discussion that I had with the same cousin about saying to girls, oh babe, I prefer you without makeup. And then some girls getting offended because there's a merging between how I look with makeup on, which takes a lot of skill. It's taken me years to develop this. I have my certain products. I know what I'm doing, and that is me. And you're not saying, oh, I love you beautiful, I love you natural. You're saying, hey, when you have makeup on, you're actually doing a bad job. I prefer you natural. It's no longer. It's not a compliment anymore. It's not a compliment.
Yeah. Again, like this type of thing, I was trying to explore the spectrum of what's okay in terms of cosmetic adjustments. You know, where is that line? Like makeup, okay, here and there, you know, you accentuate some features. Like I genuinely do feel more like myself when I have the makeup and the braids done, but they are artificial. Like I'm not gonna try to beat around the bush. They are fake, they're artificial, but a part of me feels more like me with it. Yes. Now, if we exaggerate that a few more steps, where's that line? If I get my lips done, my jaw shaved, you know, like my cheeks plumped up, like where is the line with that?
Can we do that? Can we do that?
Spit everywhere, dude.
We'll both get it done. I'd love to do the
oh yeah,
sucking on a Hoover with the destruction. This is Guy Debord again in Society of the Spectacle. With the destruction of history, contemporary events themselves retreat into a remote and fabulous realm of unverifiable stories, uncheckable statistics, unlikely explanations, and untenable reasoning.
What? When did he write this?
68.
Fucking hell, 68. Man! Read that again, man.
It's special. I mean, for this moment in 2020, this is written in 1968, folks. With the destruction of history, contemporary events themselves retreat into a remote and fabulous realm of unverifiable stories, uncheckable statistics, unlikely explanations, and untenable reasoning. The more I'm reading philosophy, the more I'm saying that where we're at right now, it's all predicted. It's all predicted to a nuance. To a nuance, like Nietzsche was talking about what we face today back in 1883. In 1883, he was predicting what there's no shocks here. There's no surprises here. The philosophers have been warning us for centuries of where we're going, really, really long time. And to a nuance, they're not going, oh, I think vaguely people will get more superficial. How do you get more on the nose? I mean, what Guy Debord is describing with this quote is where we stand right now with our relationship with politicians, news, and social media. It's like a fact battle. We're in the death of truth. We battle for facts, and we're completely fucking lost in this fabulous realm of unverifiable stories, unlikely explanations, and now completely untenable reasoning. I mean,
it doesn't get any more exact than that. That blows my mind, man. You know, but like, think about like when you read that in 68 or 69 or 70, like, it's like, how would you even imagine a society that can function that way? Or how does it even get there? And here we are in that very situation, and it manifests in the way that it is on social media, the internet, and how that's penetrating our actual reality, physical reality bubble.
Yeah, it's actually penetrating the physical reality bubble. Exactly. And this is where we see the power of nightmares. The internet was a receptacle for the unconscious. That's where all the dreams, the demons, the fantasies, the fairies, that's where they all went. Spilling out, man. They're spilling the fuck out. And it's making a mess because we've been using it as like an unconscious oubliette, a pit, a cellar to throw everything into. It's full now. It's full. It's split. The dam's split. They're all coming out.
Yeah, man. Wow. I mean, okay, I got a comment. Like, obviously, I don't fully like want to believe this, but they were just saying like, Pierre, you're one of the most level-headed, like a commentary YouTubers in this whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I hit my head with the lemon and smoke out of my face with the eyeball. I'm like, if I am the level-headed person with this fucking thing doing this,
Yeah.
you know, then that means we live in a world that is crazier than I portray myself to be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably it's probably the only way people can take level-headedness, which is why, like when we were talking, it is. That's what I said last time.
Yes.
We're now going to enter an age where what becomes important is art, obscenity, comedy, and just complete absurdism. That's our only remedy from where we're at. We need, because we're faced with chaos and our sense of order is all upside down. So you kind of have to make the internal world match the external world in order to conquer the stress.
Yeah. I imagine it to be like punching through the last layer of absurdity into reality.
That's it.
So it's like, you know, it's getting more absurd and ridiculous, and it like clutters this entire thing, and he just needed a last cannonball, a cannon blast of absurdity in order to break back into reality. Did you know that during, I think it's World War I or II, I don't remember, but there was this art movement called Dadaism. Do you know about it? Yeah,
no,
it was
sorry, I don't know about. I've heard of it. I think it's World War One. I think it's quite old.
World War One. Okay. Dadaism is basically absurdity at its finest. They basically, the philosophy said, we live in a crazy world that makes no sense. So many people died in World War One that we just, you know what? Why make sense at all? Yeah. So a lot of these artists would go up on stage and just recite gibberish with giant cardboard boxes as arms and like a lemon on top of the head, and they would literally go for like 30 minutes. Yeah. And it was a huge movement for, I mean, still to this day, actually, for years, but we're kind of in that Dada phase with memes and absurdity and the YouTube humor and Gen Z humor is all Dada. That happened in World War I too.
That's that makes an awful lot of sense to me, because like we've discussed memes at length, and I do think it's a kind of it's like a rebellion. It's a kind of psychological release. It's also a kind of giving up. When you do a meme, you kind of you're not really fighting. You're giving up in a way that's funny. Yeah. There's always a nihilism in a meme. A really funny meme is really depressing and sad, but that's what makes it hilarious.
Yeah, I imagine like when you post a meme or make one or repost one, it always comes with like a understated sigh, like you know, like a really subtle.
Only because my life is fucked can I be this funny at this point. Yeah, I think it's one of the things that's been bothering me, but I think there's a tendency to want to fight. So I look at chaos and I want to fight it with order, and I'm like, how are you going to do that? You don't have the time, you don't have the energy. It's the world is up to where it's up to. So what's the appropriate response? You know, you can ask people to think, you can chat to them, but of all the things right now, what do people want? They want to laugh. They want to laugh, and they want a fresh perspective. They want to, because the mainstream media, even social media now, it's actually very regimented. Social media isn't really a source for alternative narratives. You look for an alternative narrative on social media, you can predict what the fuck is going to say right before he or she says it. You already know. You can take one look at them and go, here's this caricature. I know what their position on the subject. Oh, here we go. Yeah, now he's going to say, and now she's going to say, there we go. There's nothing new. There's nothing fresh.
Yeah. So maybe perhaps the over-identification with groups is because you have these archetypal, exaggerated caricatures of how a person should behave with their beliefs. Yeah. And then you have these people that want to be heard, but they don't characterize themselves because it takes effort to build a persona for yourself. So they'll adopt one that was already manifested by the group mind.
I 100% agree with you. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot since we last spoke. I was like, what's this move towards collectivism? Because I was trying to, like, you know, the whole race. And I'm like, I don't buy this. I don't think it's about race. I really, really don't. So I'm like boiling it down. I'm like, it's collectivism. Why are we going collectivist? And that I was like, because it's easier. It's just easier, man. I don't have a voice. Look, your group, you have 10 things that you believe in. I don't really believe in all of them. I believe in 6 of them. And the other 4 I don't believe in. Fuck it. I'll just pretend I do, just so I'm with you. I'm not silent. I have significance. I can't be bothered to actually make significance individualistically. Let me just join and shout at the back and feel good.
Yeah, it's the chase for significance. It's kind of like I can't think of the exact example of this, but there's a bunch of sci-fi films, right, where it's either like a robot or maybe like a zombie monster thing, but it's built by a bunch of other miniature people that turn into that giant colossal Godzilla type creature. It's kind of like that, you know, this caricature of the ultimate boss battle, or the ultimate boss at the end of the battle. But you know, in order for that to form, you have all of these other little like minions like that form that colossal thing, because it's really hard to be a minion and grow to that length. So people finally feel like they're part like of this like fucking
huge monster. I can't be a huge monster, but I can join up with this beehive, and we can make something together. There's a game I cite a lot. I actually don't know its name. I just know the concept. It's like this horror game. It's hugely successful, critically acclaimed, but the monster is nanobots. And the monster scans you. It's artificial intelligence. It scans you for your worst fear. And then it shows up as this cloud of nanobots, makes that monster it scans you. And then, it's your worst nightmare. And I love that, because I was like, this is what narcissists do. This is how narcissists act. They project your worst nightmare. It's all image. It's all sales pitch. There's nothing there. But I wonder if this is why narcissism is spiking, because we live in this age of the spectacle. So the gap between the authentic and the fake is so wide.
Yeah. So do you think maybe like the reason why it sparks is because of this lack of identity, where they are forced to exaggerate a spectacle, which means projecting whatever to themselves or to others, because it needs to be big?
Exactly that, with one more layer. You do it based on the reaction you're seeking. So you start with the reaction from your target first. So you're like, do we want fear? Do we want lust? Do we not be that?
What you mean?
Yeah. Like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
13-year-old teenage boy terms right here. So it's like, oh, I know what your deepest, darkest fear is, Richard.
Yeah.
Or like to seduce, you know, it's like, oh, I know what you're really into. I can make you fall in love.
That's right.
Shift into that, so then pull them in.
There was a film in the 80s with Kelly LeBrock called Weird Science, where these guys made the perfect woman, and she actually showed up. They were nerds in school, in American high school. They were getting beaten up, and they're like, oh, it would be amazing if we had this perfect woman. And they built the perfect woman. And then she's literally physically there in their house. And of course, they completely shit themselves, and it brings nothing but chaos and destruction into their lives, because the power of the simulation is then brought into the real. And the two cannot coexist. There's just there's no way for coexistence.
You know, so you don't think that any part of that alternate fantasy dimension can belong in this low vibration Earth reality?
I think this is a point that Zizek makes. Obviously, Zizek is a Freudian psychoanalyst and a Lacanian. He says you never want. This is more like a Lacanian point. You never want what you want. You don't. You want to want what you think you want. That's what you enjoy. Ooh. Kelly LeBrock is beautiful, but let her just be my fancy over there when she's actually sat next to me. The first thing that happens with these guys, let's keep it, like you said, like 14-year-old schoolboy level. What is a 14-year-old schoolboy really is going to love Kelly LeBrock? Maybe she's age 24. She's a hot model. Fine. And as a fantasy, he's going to love her. But we've been 14-year-old boys. What would you do if a beautiful grown woman is in your presence? You shit yourself. You'd be terrified. So you go, oh, I finally got the thing I wanted. What's my emotional response? It's not lust. It's not lust. It's horror. It's total horror, because she's then looking at you and you're going, oh, I'm just a 14-year-old boy. So there's going to be, we seem to be incapable, or not incapable, but we struggle to think systemically. Yeah. So when you have the thing, so it's like commodity fetishism. She's literally reduced to being an object of sexual beauty here. Let's imagine it's two girls who summon up a hot guy. It really wouldn't make any difference. So the two girls summon up a hot guy as this object of beauty that raises their status in high school. But then the hot guy is there. Now, Kelly LeBrock actually says to these two guys, because she's programmed to be sexually provocative, come and shower with me, boys. And so they get in she's completely naked. They get in the shower and they both keep their jeans on.
That's hilarious.
So we never want what we think we want. Not really. We just want to want it.
So hypothetically, even if you found a way to flip Kelly LeBrock or whatever, there's another layer of, oh, now you're disappointed after maybe the first 5 times, maybe 10. I don't know what your limit is, but you start realizing the flaws, the cons, the negatives about being in this situation that you thought was your ultimate fantasy. It loses its appeal. The lust disappears. The chase isn't there anymore too, which is what you want. You want to want. You
want the image. And this is, I think, another reason. So we have this split between that which has intrinsic value and that which only has sign value. And then we have the fact that in a more narcissistic and spectacle-based society, people don't mature. So they think something is wrong when they hit the phase of going, damn, Kelly LeBrock is actually quite annoying when she's in my house. And I don't want to have sex with her all the time. Brad Pitt, age 25, peak Brad Pitt. Yeah, he's cool, but like he eats all the Cheetos and then leaves the Cheeto dust on my fucking cushions. Like he's there he's now physical, and there is a real horror in realizing your fantasy. Really, I 100% agree with Zizek on this. That like he says, you should never get too close to God. You should never because it's if God comes too close, it's chaotic, it's disappointing, it's heartbreaking that you realize this wonderful entity is not that great.
I just had an epiphany about my last relationship.
Damn.
But yeah, without getting too personal, that's kind of how it worked. We kind of fell in love with the projections that we had about each other.
Sure.
You know, we resembled, let's just say, famous idols that we praised growing up in our teenage years. And we were living out this indie film of this image, this projection that we put amongst each other. And we kind of knew it too. We were like kind of self-aware about it. But like you said, it ended up in utter chaos.
It's awful. Like, it's the worst. Yeah, you'll hate each other eventually. And there's something intrinsically narcissistic about that, but not necessarily malignant narcissistic. If you're in your teens and your early 20s, perfectly entitled to play this game. Sure. The problem is when we don't let go of the image. You're like, listen, even Kelly LeBrock's husband is not actually sleeping with Kelly LeBrock. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's not with Kelly LeBrock. He's I'm gonna stick with Kelly LeBrock. Fuck it. He's with Kelly. Yeah. He's just with his wife. Now, can people learn to love that? No, because they're furious when I tell them that that's what's going to happen. I see them in coaching and they're real angry with me for breaking the bad news to them. And they do what you just said, not always, but frequently when people have been in narcissistic abusive relationships, they'll say, you wouldn't believe how much like Johnny Depp he looks. You wouldn't believe how much like Sean Connery he looks. You wouldn't. And I'm like, listen to yourself. Listen, please, here, like, this is not the real world. You're trying to make a fantasy real because in times gone by, when Greeks were watching a Greek play, it was so shit. Nobody thought it was such a shit experience. Nobody thought, oh, this is real. You've got people with big masks on with little speakers in them saying their lines in a weird. You wouldn't wake up the next day and go, oh, that was real. You would accept the boundary. But as entertainment seeks to get realer and realer, we get more and more confused.
Let's get into that, actually. Okay. Oh, I never even thought about that. Oh my God, that's a great observation, man, because I have noticed that I genuinely have a really hard time connecting with art, film, music, movies before 1980s, 1970, because there was a very obvious boundary when it comes to entertainment. They purposely exaggerate it. Well, you see,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah,
everything, on this hyper real kind
yeah,
of communication. Like you see how people talk in the 80s in
yeah,
movies. It's like
yeah,
you can see that there's like this force, and even in cartoons now, like for example, Midnight Gospel is now a podcast. It's not
right.
exaggerated voices, but before it's like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah.
What led to that, to this weird transition into reflecting almost exactly like our reality, like Joker, for example, too.
Yes, yeah, it's consumer capitalism, it's market forces. What gets the best response? They're not, they stopped asking, yeah, like decades ago, what's the best film? Like, what's the best artistic piece of thing we can do that has a message and a concept? It's how do we sell tickets? What was your budget to make this film? And what was the box office take? That's the only thing that counts. I think I said to you, I was bored one day, or I was thinking about films one day, and I looked up the cycle of movies with the werewolves versus vampires. There's the nice-looking English girl. She's super hot when she has the leather pants on and the two guns. Otherwise, she's kind of a little bit dull. And that whole cycle, they're not good films. They're not good films. Anybody who's interested, go and look up the budget versus the box office take. They were wildly successful. They made people multi-millionaires. It's not good movies. It's only what can you sell to a 17-year-old who's likely to buy a ticket on the local council, on the local industrial estate to go and watch a movie. So it's market forces. What do people want to watch? They don't want long periods of exposition with too many words. They like it natural. They like it punchy. They want a car chase, then they want a sex scene, then they want to move and you go here. And so, yeah, 80s is a good time to watch because I think you're right. You really see that transition and you see
Right.
the machine. The machine is learning. The machine's learning. It's upgrading. So you watch movies like shitty action films that never did great. Watch those ones. You
Oh,
see the machine learning. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I look at that. I'm like, how the hell did people buy into this, man?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
really unconvincing.
Yeah, yeah, it's and then you see the upgrade come, and as the upgrade comes and it gets better and better, we become more immersed. And so, uh, of course, from an entertainment standpoint, it's great, but from a human psychology standpoint, it is a living nightmare. It's a disaster, a total catastrophe. Now we have a reality TV show ruling the world, a reality TV show star ruling the world.
I don't know if this, I mean, this is just my subjective psychological makeup, but
Mhm,
I'm thinking because I genuinely have a hard time just watching movies in general nowadays
mhm.
because I have severe ADHD for one reason,
Yeah,
but also they're so emotionally draining at times because of the realism that's implemented in a lot of good films that I can't put myself through all of those actions and the movements of emotional ups and downs because it feels so fucking real that by
yeah.
the end of it I just like, oh Jesus. But I love Edward Scissorhands, Fifth Element, Hackers,
Mm.
stuff that's just like so outlandish because it almost implements a self-imposed boundary when you watch it. You know that it's just like this fun movie that's not based in our reality.
Right. You're trying to escape reality, and then you have when you said that, the first thing that came to mind is the Avengers. There's a level of realism that actually is forced into the film, and it's quite traumatic. You saw. I find myself the Avengers movies. I was like, this is dog shit. I'm not going to watch them. And then I had nothing to watch on a plane one day, and I was like, no, it's not dog shit. There's actually a lot of work gone in here, and it is about having the broadest space imaginable and making the most amount of money. And I was consuming it, and I was thinking, this is actually, as you say, it's too much. It's
It's
and
too much.
for a child, it must be incredibly
Oh
traumatic.
yeah, and maybe I have the emotional capacity of a child because every time I watch a modern movie that legitimately is critically acclaimed, and yes, I will agree it's a good movie, I
Yeah,
don't feel good after watching it. I feel exhausted. I
yeah,
have no more energy. I don't
yeah,
know how I could sit and binge off these types of movies, you know?
yeah. You gave the example of Joker before, and
Yeah.
that film really managed to capture the real. the realism of New York City. Everybody looks dirty. They look like they've got a lot of back sweat that's been there for a few hours. Everything is covered in grime and grit. Everybody looks sad, slightly broken, depressed, wary. And you're right. It's actually quite hard to watch. It's not. You don't leave the cinema going, "Yay, I'm full of energy." You're like, "Damn, I need to shower and get that out."
No, honestly, like I don't think I have actually watched a movie in recent times where I said like, let's take on the day. I'm like, I'm going to bed. I don't actually, Netflix and chill. How about you just go back home, girl? Like I feel fucking stressed now. Like I can't be around people. But when I watch Edward Scissorhands, when I watch Hackers of Fifth Element, I have so many new ideas. All right, how about this concept here? Like, there's something about these weirdly, legitimately, obviously fictional movies that are more empowering. I don't know why.
I have an idea. I didn't come at it from the effects and the visual side of it. I came at it from the narrative, which was I started to notice in the late 90s, early 2000s, films wouldn't stay in their lane. So I was raised in the 80s as a kid, and I would watch whatever shitty action film came out in Portugal. All of us would go in Villa Moura, where the cinema was in the middle, and we'd watch it. Whatever it was, Cobra, Action Jackson, any shit thing. And in the late 90s, I was like, I don't know what the fuck this film is. You get films with 2 tones in them, and then you got films with 3 tones, and then 5 tones. Right. So I'm looking it up, and I'm like, oh, they're hiring writing teams of 15 people. And then the studio doesn't like what you do. So they're like, Pierre, we're dropping you from this project, but we're not going to tell anybody. Richard's going to come and finish it off. But don't worry, it'll be your name on the thing. So I reshoot the scenes they don't like. And now you're hearing my dumb voice, or not hearing it. You're feeling multiple voices. So they don't stay in their lane. They don't know what they want to be. An action movie was an action movie. A comedy is a comedy. Now it's like it's action comedy, but there's also a sad part. And then, I'd be watching movies, and all of a sudden we're introduced to a cute kid, and then the cute kid gets run over. And I'm like, why did you do that to me? What the fuck is the tone of this film?
Yeah, you're right. That you bring it up. I think I've noticed in oldish films like 90s, 80s stuff, there is a consistent feeling. Maybe that's what I enjoy about it. There's a consistent theme and an emotional tone to the whole thing.
But you mentioned a film by Luc Besson and a film by Doody McDude-Pants. What's his name?
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton. So Luc Besson would have been he's not as strong now, but back then he was at his peak with The Fifth Element. He's an artist. He's really at the right age. He's at the right money level. He's not too rich. He's still hungry. He's got the money for this big project, and he's like, let's have fun with this, but it's disciplined. It's tight. He knows what story he wants to tell. Tim Burton, my God, I mean, tight. That's a guy with a theme. That's a guy with like the look, the sound. It's always the same. So you're listening to you're consuming one person's artistic flavor, not multiple artistic flavors from multiple people that conflict. They don't even fucking work with each other. They're actually against each other.
I think that's what it is. Oh, well, this ties right back in because there's a tightening to the craft. I think you explained it perfectly. The fact that there's a tightening allows the reality in that world to solidify.
Yeah.
In the world we live in now, the postmodern world is defined in a way that there are no solidified concepts. And you see that in the art, in the movies, in the film. That's why everything's fucking chaos. It's just fragmented in every way, in the same way that we are mentally.
I think the finest example of that postmodern effect is the recent Star Wars movies. They're dog shit. They're dog shit. They're just so bad. But you can tell that there's this neurotic effort to bring in something that's from reality. What would Luke Skywalker really do at this point? How would he deal with his PTSD of his life? I'm like, no one cares. Just let him be Luke Skywalker, Master Jedi. No, he burns the books of the Jedi, and Yoda comes and says, fuck you, Luke. And you're just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, why are we? Everything is deconstructionist now. So they want to tear it all apart. The oldest shit, let's tear it down.
Yeah, it's not even deconstruction within the characters of the writing. It's deconstruction in a way where they want to please the political agenda. So they're figuring out ways to please the masses and what they want politically, socially, whatever else. So they're implementing not only multiple voices of 50 in the writer's room, they're they're implementing the thousands of Twitter voices that what they want in their shit too.
Now this is, I won't go off on a rant here, but this is where I would say this has affected everything. We're all somewhat guilty, you and I included, of trying to talk to our detractors, because we're facing our detractors all the time in a way that we never would have before. We never would have before. So we're all a little bit traumatized, and we're all a little bit self-harming. I don't have Twitter, but I know people who check their Twitter feed, and I'm like, why do you do that? It's nothing but people telling you you're a piece of shit who disagree with you, because that's their hobby. And so we're receiving death by 1,000 cuts. So we're sort of preempting what user Harry Ballbag 665 might say. I know what that twat's going to say about this scene, so let me just deconstruct his argument. But politicians are doing the same thing. They're dancing like marionettes. And I'm like, if our politicians are doing that, we're fucked. They shouldn't care. They should have a vision, a purpose, and an intent, and stick to that. They shouldn't even be on Twitter. They shouldn't be. What the fuck is a politician doing on Twitter? It's insane to be on Twitter. It's completely, so I think it creates this, that's another, not deconstructionist, but maybe corrosive effect, where you see the directors and the politicians and everybody else is trying to speak to the detractors all the time. Terrible mistake. Terrible mistake.
Yo, when I learned what sand really was, I tripped out. I swear to God, this has to deal with what we're talking about.
Sand?
Sand. It's the erosion over hundreds of years of wind and other bits of sand hitting rock until it dissipates completely onto the shore. Do you think that there is a link in the way that all of us are eroding slowly by all of the detractors just gently hitting us here and there, here and there, and here and there we are? It's constant. Everybody else.
Yeah, and the internet never sleeps. One of the quotes I read before from Baudrillard was TV never sleeps. He was claiming it was it's related to our inherent fear of the dark. It's like a permanently burning fire in the corner of the room. It never sleeps. That's a problem. There's a problem that the TV never sleeps. It's a problem that the internet never sleeps. We never get a fucking break. We never get a break from this shit. You're just in it all the time. And even if people aren't telling you, go online. Well, actually, people are telling me. Like, if I don't answer Facebook messages, they get upset and pissy with me. I'm like, I don't use Facebook. Just text me. You've got my number. But even when they're not, the implication is you must do this. You must be online. You must be talking. You must be producing content. You have to have an opinion. You can't not have an opinion. You can't just shrug and go, I don't know. That's unacceptable. Pick a side, fuckface.
So it's like the wind is forced to be in action at all times.
Yes.
Yeah. You can't stop the wind. It's just you. Even when the wind stops, people are yelling at the wind to keep going. Yelling in the wind, right? Is that the metaphor?
That's the metaphor. Yelling at the wind. Keep going. Keep eroding everything. I have just a couple more quotes here. Spectacle, Guy Debord wrote the book, Society of the Spectacle, is the sun that never sets over the empire of modern passivity.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So in a certain, it's quite poetic that in a certain sense, it's the life, fake life giving force and guidance. It shapes everything and it never switches off. It never fucking goes down.
Dude, Southern California.
Right?
That he explained Southern Californian culture in one sentence.
Yeah.
The sun literally never sets there all year round. Mm-hmm. And all people do is smoke ganja and nothing.
Yeah.
And just fucking, you know?
Yeah. And this is the, I think this is the inevitable state that we all end up in when we're tired, we're burnt out with pleasure, we're overindulged, and there's a pain at the end of pleasure, a really awful pain when you've experienced a lot of pleasure, which is there's no more. And even if there's more to be had, your pleasure senses are numb. You won't feel it. Yes, there's more cocaine. Yes, there's more sex, but you won't feel a goddamn thing because you're maxed out now. That's horrendous. That's a horrifying situation to be in.
Right. Because the spectacle gives the passive person a sense of entertainment, but also this weird substitution for identity, purpose, some action. By
Oh,
watching a spectacle, you feel like you're active.
that's right. So it's a you used the word simulacra before, which is the name of Baudrillard's book. It's all about that. It's all about exchanging the real for the unreal, or the hyperreal, I suppose. I should try and use that word properly. Which means, yeah, your signaling is more important than action. Signaling is more important than action now. It's superseded action. So action's absolutely secondary. Action is like, yeah, sure, we say, but we must let people know, because we need to. I hate this modern phrase, raise awareness. I'm like, oh, please. What the fuck does that mean? What's it gonna do? You raise awareness? My God.
Yeah, no, yeah, man. I think with signaling, it's almost as if like these groups of passive, lazy people think that they're growing this garden and they're helping it grow when really it's the sun doing it for them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's back to your analogy before. If you're a little bee, you're not the monster, but the little bee is like, I'm this monster. Nah, motherfucker, you're just a little bee.
Right, right. It's like this. Oh, it's like this. So you have those a group of passive people, and they're just doing grow,
Yeah,
grow. We
yeah,
must raise awareness to raise the seeds.
yeah,
Grow, and then
yeah,
they start growing. We did it,
yeah,
but the spectacle being the sun,
yeah.
that's the one really doing all the work.
Exactly that. So what Nietzsche predicted was that religion in our time would come back full circle. And it's not that we would lose it, it's that it would become more primitive. We'd go back to primitive religion, which is fetishism, which is the magical thinking of a child. I do my chant over here. I've just grown a seed. It's like, nah, you didn't, mate. It's like you said, it's the sun. It's life that did that. But we attach to it. What is that? Logical fallacy, cum hoc ergo propter hoc, with this, therefore, because of this. Well, I chanted and a seed grew. So I made the seed grow. Not really.
And having the sun blaring so hugely,
Yeah.
you don't even realize it's even there anymore, but it empowers everything.
That's what Zizek would say about ideology. He would say that, no, the problem with ideology is we don't know it's there. It's not that we know we're in ideology and we're swimming around in it going, this is what we believe. Pure ideology, as he would say, functions exactly in that way. You don't know that the sun is doing it. You don't know that the sun is there. You make your symbolic gestures to, the God, but we don't call it God now. It doesn't even have a name. It's this vague sense of being looked at, which is what God used to do. God was the peeping Tom. God's the eye of Horus. He's Jehovah peering at you when you have a wank, because that's what he likes to do. But we don't have that. So we are actually, we're not in a post-philosophical, post-ideological age. We're not even in a post-religious age. We have a religion. It just stinks. It's just shit. It's somewhere between primal fetishism and commodity fetishism. That's the new religion.
We're strangely we did kind of go back in this weird archaic primitive form of thinking with so much technology around. You're right.
We've regressed. This was
So
Nietzsche. Yeah, this is Nietzsche's prediction. So when you look at how much symbology is around now. Look at what's demanded of you as a social influencer, that you must make your offering symbolically. You must make the right gestures, or else, my friend, you failed the puritanical orthodoxy, and you will be not burnt at the stake, but cancelled. So we're forced to make these symbolic gestures. So it's all symbolism and dominance now.
When you make content or tweet a specific thing, and as long as it prays to the ideological God that bestowed those beliefs upon you, that's what you're doing. And if you don't follow that religious order and doctrine, you are burnt at the stake and deplatformed.
100%. 100%. You will be, I mean, there was burning at the stake and there was kicking people out of countries. There's another word for it. Somebody can tell me in the comments, but you kind of get unpersoned in a very Stalinist way. The church no longer recognizes you. Burning at the stake is horrible, but your soul could still go to heaven. But if we unperson you and the church ceases to see you as a person, you're not going to Catholic heaven. Catholic heaven is that nightclub is closed, homie. You're on the street. So it's beyond burning. It's this. Somebody will tell me what it is. It's it basically the church.
Excommunication.
This was the worst you could do to somebody, because if you're not within the body of Mother Church, you don't go to heaven. You suffer for eternity. You're in the outlands of hell and purgatory for fucking ever. There's no sorry, not purgatory. Purgatory can lead to heaven. Of hell, you just stay in hell forever. That's it. You're done.
Like I know there's another person, but like Galileo, for example, was excommunicated in a way when he brought up his scientific discoveries of the sun, right?
I don't know whether he was ever excommunicated. I do know the story that they showed him the instruments of torture, and because he was a man of science, he changed his views instantly.
Yeah, so maybe it was Galileo, because I was trying to bring up the person who did discover something but kept it hidden.
But there's Galileo and Copernicus, and I am afraid I don't know which one did which.
Yeah, I might have been in the comments, but some old ass dude that looked at the stars that had too much goddamn time on his hands, like this actually discovered some shit, but then he shifted his beliefs because he was fearful of what the orthodoxy would do to him.
Yeah, they took him to he was either Galileo or Copernicus. Somebody help me. He was saying that the sun is the center of the universe, which had been claimed before. It wasn't a new claim. It's just that he was claiming it in a place where the Catholic Church was very strong, and they're like, stop it. And he went, I won't stop it. Stop it. I fucking well won't. They said, come to this torture chamber, mate. And they just showed him. They weren't even like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Like, do you see what this could do to a human body? Because people were quite rough then. You'd usually have to beat the shit out of them to get submission. But he was an intellectual, a man of science. He was like, I don't want any of those things anywhere near me. The sun is wherever you say it is, Father.
Which in the end is kind of makes sense.
Absolutely.
Spike, man.
But this also is the age we live in, is it not? Where you won't speak your truth. I don't speak my truth. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to me to speak my truth. I could be killed. I could literally, somebody could find me or come to a seminar and stab me to death. That's the temperature we live in. I for sure could lose my business. I for sure could be deplatformed forever. You get labeled as one of the big labels, the big brandings they put on you. You won't work again. Or you will be, I'd have to work only with fringe groups who accepted me and my branding.
Exactly. No, for sure, man. And the way that I deal with it is just I'll sprinkle a little bit under the guise of what you want to hear. We'll do a little bit here, a little bit of seasoning right on the thing,
Maybe they'll figure out what I'm referencing here.
Exactly.
We're at exactly 666 viewers right now. The number of the beast. So this was the last quote I had from Baudrillard. The very definition of the real becomes that of which it is possible to give an equivalent reproduction. The real is not only what can be reproduced, but that which is always already reproduced. The HyperReal.
Oh, shit. Okay, hold on.
So the real becomes that which it is possible to give an equivalent reproduction. The real is not only what can be reproduced, but that which is always already reproduced. The HyperReal. Okay, the easiest way to get your head around this is celebrity for its own sake.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no original celeb. There's no reason for you to be a celebrity. You're a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
It's replicating something that was already fantasy.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And you're not expected to. I think the fastest way to describe it is when you say, okay, we have societal values and they've been switched out for junk values. And one of our junk values is narcissism. So you will be rewarded not for being a car rally driver who's amazing or a tennis player who's amazing, who then is a narcissist. And you're like, oh, I like that guy. He's arrogant. He's a narcissist, but amazing tennis player. Now it's just the narcissism. You just worship the narcissism itself. So somebody getting up on stage and just acting like a completely obnoxious narcissistic psychopath and throwing it in your face, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. But it's a copy of a copy of a copy. And when you go into that, like you said, of being a caricature, K-pop, You know way more about K-pop than I do, but you can almost you can just pull them from a file. Like, this is the cute one, this is the naughty one, this is the bad boy, this is and then you just put 5 of them together, and then boom, it's a machine, it's a printing press.
I think the boy band is the greatest way to explain this quote, because the boy band doesn't exist in everyday life at all. Like, there's no situation where 5 extremely good-looking dudes come together, all extremely talented, could dance and sing, completely on key, choreography, and they all have that specific archetype of personality, and they just do this thing together.
Yes.
That has never existed naturally. Never. It only exists manufactured and then replicated over and over and over throughout the decades in whatever culture you fucking want.
Yes, and it appeals to that. It's an appeal directly to the hyperreal and the desire for choice. It's incredibly stimulating. It stimulates the hormones. Because it's directed at predominantly at girls in their teenage years, where the biology is on mate selection. So you're just pressing the mate selection button. Which one do you want? Do you want the bad boy? You want the cute one? Oh, I kind of like the bad boy sometimes, but
all the time.
Yeah. So there's simulation is a problem, but also overstimulation becomes a problem. This is where we get burnt out, and our culture's burnt out. We're tired. I think we're out of ideas, and we're a bit knackered now.
Yeah. Like, back to that Dada thing, this guy kind of ruined art, but he was really ahead of his time. It was Duchamp, and he's the guy that put the urinal in the art gallery. He was the one that started the random object in the art gallery trend that still exists today.
Right.
His idea was exactly what you're describing. This reproduction of a reproduction is now considered art. That was his point. Like, we live in a time where this object was replicated over and over, but now, because of the context of where it's set, changes the meaning of it. At the time, it's ridiculous, and it still is, but it does say something about where we are mentally, about what you're saying about this hyper realistic reproduction, copy, manufactured culture.
This is where everything becomes you have the archetype of a millennial, archetype of Gen Z, and then the archetype of the hipster, where everything is meta and everything is ironic. Nothing is sincere. Why would it be? It can only be sincere if it's actually got intrinsic value, and everything only has sign value.
Ooh, I like that, dude. That's great. The mass admiration of irony is because of intrinsic value completely disappearing.
Yeah. So we can only really enjoy things through an ironic filter, because it feels incredibly uncomfortable and alien to be earnest and sincere. And then so for me, in my position, I get people who are living on this wave, and then they come to me and go, "Why can't I make love work?" And I'm like, where would you like me to begin with the problems you face? Like, when I say people live in an intimacy averse environment, it's for everything we've been discussing in the last hour. There's no way intimacy will flourish naturally here. You've got to be very disciplined to make it work.
You can't flip ironically.
No, you cannot. But you do.
You're
the flip lord, but it's kind of a joke, but it's kind of real. You're a manifestation of the hyperreal.
Yes, for sure. You can't get stuff. The Neo had to go back in the Matrix. You know, he didn't just stay outside of it. He purposely plugged himself in.
Yes.
I got giant mane. Got to hide that hole in the back of my neck.
Well, sir, I have to go.
You got to go, man. So do I.
Do we have any final thoughts for our people?
Flip unironically.
Yes. That's the road back to sincerity. We're both hopeful of the sexual revolution, right? Men and women coming back to each other, people finding love again.
I'm all for that, my friend.
That's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. Peace and love. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention today. Hope you enjoyed that. We certainly did. And we'll speak to you again soon.
Goodbye.